And the first felony criminal charge brought against Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin is interfering with a legal proceeding, which is essentially what they've been doing all along.
I think this was a distraction from the first weakness on the economy.
If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic.
The arrest of the judge in Wisconsin, again, not isolated, felt jarring.
They relish the opportunity to go after judges.
It's not like we didn't know it was going to be terrible, and it is terrible. He really did have a judge arrested today. Arresting a judge today. Are you kidding me?
I thought no one was above the law.
No American is above the rule of law. The same rules apply to everyone.
No one is above the law.
The basic concept of the rule of law in our history has been the idea that no one is above the law.
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 You got that, guys? Nobody is above the law except for left-wing judges that are sympathetic to our cause of letting every illegal in that we want. Other than that, no one's above the law. How are you guys doing today? I'm a bit flustered after a fight with not even the computer, a fight with OBS, because it's a lame-ass, godforsaken program at the moment. It's really driving me crazy now because this is the second time in a row. But in case you have any kind of information that would be useful when you have no audio coming out from your main monitor source that you have set and has never given you problems before and all of a sudden does, please let me know because it's driving me nuts. But that's a side story. And Jay, it's good to see that you're doing good today, man, and good to hear from you. I'm doing well. I got my new chair, as you probably can see. It's very, very comfy, and I fell asleep in it for a long time, actually, once already. So, yes, it's very nice. Anyway, of course, today we got all kinds of legal news to get into. But before we get into it, I just have to go over one thing, because I thought this was one of the most... I mean, talk about trolling the media and doing it in a way that is like just beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. This is I think it's exactly 100 days today. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it's exactly 100 days today that well, no, it couldn't be. Or wait, could it? I guess maybe it could. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is, actually. Anyway, so 100 days into Trump's new presidency, and, well, he had an interesting display up at the White House today for a way to sort of celebrate the 100 days so far in office. And I have to say it was a very cool way to celebrate your accomplishments so far, although once again, I think the main goal was really to just piss off the mainstream media, because I don't think there is one other way that I can think of that would really have got under their skin worse than doing this. So let me just bring it up real quick, because before we even start getting into anything else, I just have to get this part out, because this was originally going to be my introduction until I saw that montage of that damn phrase, no one is above the law. Oh, Lord. I got so tired of every single two-bit hacked politician that spent their whole lives believing they're above the law coming out and saying no one is above the law. It just was, it was like nails on a chalkboard after a while. And so I have to at least... kind of help with celebrating the 100-day mark with this clip from the Trump administration today, and the display going on at the White House. So let's take a little peek at that, shall we? Because this is absolutely perfect. Like I said, you couldn't have done better. Oh, here, let's full screen it, and we'll get the volume on, and here we go. You can already kind of see it in the picture, but excuse me. Let's just see what's going on here, shall? Oh, come on. Oh, wait, here.
President Trump's 100th day in his second term, and the White House is putting the spotlight, in particular, on his border security victories. Right now, there are mugshots of what the administration is calling the worst of the worst 100 illegal immigrants authorities have arrested since the president took office. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus.
Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, this is an American moment.
And now the opposite of that hilarious little jab at the media and the Democrats. Look at this sad display that, I guess what would be the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Spartacus, a.k.a. Senator Cory Booker, who gave a 25-hour speech for no reason. Look at their huge protest that drew literally tens of people to the steps of the Capitol building. And this is pretty sad.
And we need the American people to show up and stand up and speak up and partner with us. And we're going to get through this moment. We're going to end this national nightmare.
And endorsing this look at them. They began before sunrise yesterday to highlight what Senator Booker called a moment of, quote, moral urgency, end quote. The whole thing lasted 12 hours with mixed reviews on actual turnout. Critics, however, had plenty to say. Here's a posting. Typical of Democrats to sit around and do nothing. Another, even our local blue state news was saying how dozens of supporters came out. Dozens. And then another like stupid gimmick, maybe doing your job and being productive would be a good thing.
Yeah, so that was their awesome display, and nothing shows the strength in numbers and your willingness to fight the man like sitting on your ass on the Capitol building with about maybe 20 or 30 people there. It's not even as good as "We won't rest, we won't rest." That whole stupid one with Chuck Schumer. But yeah, that's what they've been up to. There's a lot more they've been up to, and we'll go over it today. But yeah, I had to get those out first, because when I saw that, I was like, no, he didn't. He didn't put a bunch of mugshots of the immigrants he's deported. Yes, he did. He put a bunch of mugshots of the immigrants he's deported on signs out in front of the White House today. It's genius. It's genius. I mean, it's just amazing. Anyway, so we've got a few things to go over, and in particular, some, as the title suggests, the LARPers. I guess I'll kind of have to, maybe for the less informed and less nerdy, go over what LARPing actually is. It stands for live action role playing, if you've never heard of the term. It means, like, if you ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons, where people sit around and play games based on like a system where you have a fake scenario in a fantasy world where you're all heroic characters doing it. Live action role playing is where you go take a bunch of friends out into the woods and actually pretend like you're doing it. So that's what LARPing is. And so it seemed a fitting title that these judges, who probably think they're fucking heroes, are really just LARPing like they have some new underground railroad they're trying to set up, where they're just freeing these poor, persecuted, illegal immigrants that shouldn't even be here in the first place. One of which, by the way, I found out today, not only was he in court because he had several domestic violence charges, but he also beat the hell out of his wife and her girlfriend and some other guy that was there. And on top of all that, guess what? He'd been removed from the country once before, and then he snuck back in under the Biden administration. Imagine that. So this judge, well, I'll play the stories to really get into it, but let's just say she thought that ICE coming to arrest him and deport him and send him back to his country of origin, let's just say that she really strongly disagreed with that. And we'll play some clips about that in a second. But I just have to throw this. What's going on here? Oh, nice, man. Nice. By the way, did you see that Breath of Fire 4 came out on GOG, man? Jeez, all this Dino Crisis 1 and 2 came out on GOG, man. It's good stuff. Really awesome with all the new stuff. And Breath of Fire 4, that's my favorite in the series. But anyway, before I even get into the situation, though, let me ask this question because maybe somebody can give me their own. Yeah, sweet, huh? Let me just ask this question. See what everybody actually. Maybe somebody has a take on it that. And I doubt anybody could really make sense of this, but maybe they can analyze the mindset a little bit better than I can, because to me it's just like, how in the hell do you do this and sleep at night? What? Because, like, for example, okay, on the national level, we know why the Democrats would want to import like a bunch of illegals, because they were expecting to get a new voting bloc and a bunch of new seats in Congress probably, and maybe redistricting so that they could get more senators and more electoral college ballot votes in certain districts and things like that. So we know the party motivation as far as like on the real entrenched Washington types, but on these local judges, even if they're federal judges, just local judges, like, there's no way I would see that they would be. I mean, even if they were able to get away with these ridiculous schemes, are they thinking they're going to get promoted or something? Because I don't see any way in hell that like something like this is going to even get you some kind of recognition or accolade, let alone get promoted. And yet they do it anyway. And I'm sure, you can't trust what they have to say, obviously, because they're just going to say it was the right thing to do. Yeah, it was the right thing to do to let a guy out who snuck into the country twice, beat up a bunch of people, God knows. And there was actually 2 judges. Well, they'll be discussed both in this clip, but the other one was guilty of a lot worse than just that. So I just don't. I mean, regardless of their intention for what they're doing, how in the hell do they rationalize that this is a good idea? Because they're going to be did they not think they're going to get in trouble with or are they trying to play a martyr, and are they trying to be like this sort of individual that everybody rallies behind because they were they had the courage to stand up to ICE and to the Trump administration's deportations, and like, is that what it is? Is some kind of hope that they'll be like a martyr figure that everybody rallies behind? Because I mean, granted, it happened with someone as ridiculous as that freaking guy who was like all over Hamas and at what was that college now? I don't even remember the college, but I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. The guy who was the student that got deported for essentially promoting anti-Semitism and Hamas propaganda, and he wasn't just one of the Free Palestine lunatics. He was actually literally promoting like Hamas propaganda, like quoting Hamas propaganda, glory to the martyrs and all that garbage. And it wasn't even that got him really in hot water, though, and everybody knows it. It's the acts of blocking Jewish students from getting to classes. It's the intimidation tactics. It's chasing down Jewish students. It's chasing down anyone that agrees with Israel. It's chasing down anyone who's conservative, and sometimes getting into physical altercations with them, getting them physically injuring them. I mean, like, and just all in all, like the prevention of students to go to and from their schools, and all under the threat of violence or intimidation, and because there's been, story after story of them locking arms and essentially, creating human barricades of themselves to stop Jewish students from traveling around on the campuses. And that's where I try to help people along when they have First Amendment questions, because I've heard one of the best explanations for where the line really is in terms of free speech, quote unquote, because it's not really the speech that ever is the issue. It's when there's a call to action involved in the speech. So there's a call to more than just speech. There's a call to perform some sort of action that is likely, if not sure, to get someone hurt or killed. And that's why when people use the stupid fire in a crowded theater analogy, I've talked about this before, but just to reiterate it again, people use that like it's a catch-all, and it really isn't, because first of all, there is one scenario where it's absolutely imperative, actually, not just okay, but you should yell fire in a crowded theater, and people always seem to neglect that part. When there is a fire in a crowded theater, in that case, yes, absolutely, you should cry fire. But it's the fact that you're using your voice to call people to action when you know there's no harm or danger in that situation, but you're causing a scenario that is likely to cause panic and cause harm and danger to anyone who is attempting to escape. That is where the illegal part comes in. So when people say the fire in a crowded theater analogy, like it's some sort of, get out of jail free card for that argument, it's like, no, freedom of speech itself is absolute. The calls to action are not free speech. It's like Jordan Peterson's sort of discussion in Canada, where it was like the Canadian government is trying to force people to use words. You can't have free speech and have the government forcing you to use certain words for certain people. That's a huge infringement on free speech, and that's not really danger, but that's coercion by government to do something that is being enforced on them by rule of law and by extension threat of bodily harm or deadly force, even in some instances. So that's where the free speech sort of thing goes, as far as Mahmoud Khalil. I just remembered his name finally. That's the student that his wife's pregnant, and okay, we'll take them back to Palestine with you and enjoy the wonderful land there. But no, it's like, as far as the judges here go, who are doing this, I just can't wrap my mind around it, and maybe somebody can kind of make sense of it better than I can. But I'll at least talk about what happened. So I have a few video clips to play. One of them is pretty much the main clip, because this is a summary of both of the judges that were sort of the two main stories, because the FBI has actually alluded to knowing that there has been more cases similar to this, where federal court judges or district court judges of some kind have gone to extreme lengths to block federal immigration enforcement, or ICE, obviously, Immigration Custom Enforcement, from doing their job and arresting an illegal. And in the case of it being in a courtroom, maybe not quite as good as in a prison cell where it's the least danger to the officers or the agents, but in a courtroom, at least it's pretty damn close in terms of safety. You have to go into an area where, yes, there's the public, but the person there, the person of interest, is going to be already highly watched and already under scrutiny, and for the most part, it should be an easy target. But when you get a judge like these two in these situations, maybe it won't be as easy as you imagined it would be. So, anyway, and I'm sorry, I'm dancing around the subject a lot. I just don't want to come right out and say the whole story. I'd rather wait till we go over it piece by piece. But so we'll start with. I got to go to the folder. Oh, here it is. Like I said, now that I have this folder, oh man, it is so nice having this folder. That was. I'm so glad I have these organized now, because I can just find exactly what I'm looking for every time. I just go right over here and find the right folder, and I open it up and I play it for you guys, and everything's great. So, anyway, let's see. It's this one. Yeah. Okay. So this was, I think this was on, it was either late Saturday or on Sunday at some point when this interview took place. And it is a really good segment with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. I'm sorry. Jeez. All right, open it up, and here we go, and yep.
A former New Mexico judge and his wife were taken into custody yesterday. Federal agents arresting them for harboring a suspected Tren de Aragua gang member in their guest house.
For more on all of this, we are honored to have in the new U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi. It's good to talk to you, Pam.
Good to talk to you.
So let me read a little bit from the criminal complaint here. And Judge Dugan says, despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. A foot chase ensued. The agents pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him. According to this complaint, Judge Dugan was visibly angry that ICE was there to arrest Flores Ruiz, even tried to kick the deportation agents out of the courthouse.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you and Sandra, this was truly horrific. This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up two people, a guy and a girl, beat the guy, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out, she goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom.
So that was the ruse. That was the ruse. So she insists the ICE agents have to go speak to the chief judge of the building before they can make the arrest of the immigrant. And while they have to go do this to get this belligerent lady to shut the hell up and let them do their job, she pulls this stunt. Yeah.
The defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes him out a private exit and tells him to leave, while a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Wow.
You know, Madam Attorney General, great to have you here, and thanks for coming back on America Report. So we remember these words of Tom Homan, the border czar. This was March 17th, and his message on these judges who apparently are trying to get in the way of this administration's efforts. Listen.
I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
So when you see these judges trying to obstruct your efforts to make this country safer, what is your message to them?
We are going to prosecute you, and we are prosecuting you. I found out about this the day it happened. We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. We looked into the facts in great depth. That's her picture up on the screen.
You can tell
Hannah
she's a
Dugan,
lefty.
who is
Right
now
up
in
the bat,
custody.
can't you?
You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her. It was a domestic violence case of all cases, and she's protecting a criminal defendant over victims of crime.
In fact, she just had an initial appearance in court. There's also this other case coming out of New Mexico. Judge Joel Cano and his wife were arrested
Here's the
for
one that's
harboring
really
a
crazy,
TDA
too,
member
for the
at
guy.
their home. The alleged TDA member had been picked up by law enforcement, and now he and his wife were picked up and arrested. And you say that you believe,
Another obvious
as
lefty
the
right
Attorney
there.
General, that the person that they were having
Chunky
living at
here.
their home was a truly potentially bad individual.
Yeah, that's the judge up on the screen now who got arrested. Yeah, his name is Ortega. He was is a known TDA member, So he comes through Eagle Pass December 2023. He's living in our country. January 2025, ICE, they get a tip. Tom Homan's done a great job. Our FBI did a great job on this case, too. They get a tip that he is living with a judge and the judge's wife. So they have him arrested first on immigration charges. A Judge Damian Martinez releases him, saying that Judge Cano has a good BS meter and wouldn't let just anyone live on his property.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the associations with this violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua.
Real quick, just to interject one thing here, because one thing you consistently hear from the media on the left all the time is how there's no due process. They're just randomly picking people up that they suspect. Or it seems that like there was a hell of a lot more than just a suspicion in this case, doesn't it? Seem like I don't know. They might have quite solid information when they know the date he actually fucking passed in the damn country. They know his name. They know the gang he's affiliated with. They've got informants giving them tips, and they find out, oh, he's living with a judge. I mean, call me crazy, but I'd say that's a little more than just randomly picking people and saying, yeah, he must be illegal, get him and arrest him. That's the way they frame it, though. They try to make it sound like, oh, they're just persecuting Americans. No, they're not. They're persecuting people who should pretty much be persecuted because they're not here illegally. They're not deserving to be here another day, and yet they just keep crying more due process. There's no due process. There's due process. There's due process. I'm so tired. That's the next one. Other than no one's above the law. It's due process is the next one lined up to drive me up the freaking wall, because I swear, the more times I hear due process, the more times I say, I'll give you some due process, you son of a bitch. Anyway, we'll get back to this, because wait till you hear what this guy had as far as I guess what they would call evidence of his affiliation with Tren de Aragua. Excuse me.
And this person that they harbored in their home, he was showing signs through clothing, we were told, tattoos. There was evidence through voice messages and text messages of his association to TDA. So what charges will Cano and his wife face, if any?
So Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, got his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of 2 decapitated victims.
There we
2
go.
victims, decapitated, gruesome photos, and he was sending them out, and whoever he was sending them to was sending back saying, hey, you need to be careful. You shouldn't be sending these. You shouldn't be texting these photos out. Not only that, these 2, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
Okay, so just to kind of put this into perspective, let's frame this. Trump gets harassed and accused and, you know, basically beat up every freaking day for 2 years straight for some sort of campaign finance law and apparently sexually assaulting a woman who goes on national television and says rape is sexy. But these judges, oh man, now this is a constitutional crisis we're under here. Can you believe they're arresting judges? Oh my goodness. I wonder what the judge was thinking when he decided to hand the Trinidad Aragua guy some assault weapons. I don't know who the suppressors belong to. But this is cartoon villain type shit. Like, who? I can't even say it. I mean, this says it all. This is where these are the guys that the left are rallying behind, the modern left, which I will say this. I will say that this is a little bit encouraging. There are enough people on the left now, I think, that are looking at this, and they don't like Trump. They still don't like Trump, but they're looking at the like 15 to 20% of their party that are cheering for this kind of shit, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, we didn't really sign up for this. I mean, trust me, Trinidad Aragua has already been, sort of been made infamous through various law enforcement agencies for some pretty brutal. I mean, there was an instance with a power drill and drilling holes in this woman's hand. There was instances of them cutting people's fingers off. I mean, heinous shit. These guys aren't just, your average street gang that's gonna do a drive-by. No. These are extremely hardened criminals that have no problem doing whatever is necessary to keep their most likely their drug money flowing. But it's just it is good, and you can see it with people like Bill Maher and people that are associated with the left still, that are more left-leaning still, but some of them are really anti-Trump. Some of them are more grounded and more understanding with Trump. They don't agree with him on everything, but they're not hysterical about it. But they at least agree on one main principle, which is that this kind of shit, this has got to stop, because there's like either that, or there's even been discussions now that there needs to be a split somehow in the Democrat Party. If you're some sort of insane open borders, radical socialist, and absolute leftist freak, like the type that advocates for men playing in girls' sports and all that, the whole 9 yards, then you're in a different party than the Democrat Party, and good for them. Good for them. I mean, at least it's finally. It took a long time, but at least they're laying their foot down now. But sometimes it's kind of hard to really blame them, because you think about, I mean, what did we just watch at the beginning? Spin on every single leftist news channel about every event involving Donald Trump, and that's what they do. They talk about the most ridiculous. They spin things to be so completely opposite from the way that they are, and they scare the shit out of people, and then they get them all riled up, and we have to take action. And most of these people are pussies, and they've never, they wouldn't know what take action even means, but they think it sounds good, so they say it. But it's like, how do we get here? How do we get to a point where this was what was considered acceptable? I can't understand it. And it had to be. It's more than just Trump. Trump was kind of the catalyst for it, no doubt. But it's got to be more than Trump, and surely it's got a little bit to do, of course, with things like Chinese influence and influence of extreme left-wing oligarchs like George Soros, of course, but there's many others, and them pushing an agenda for decades now that just about. I mean, it's only recently become like, and by recent I mean in the last decade or so, or maybe a little bit more than that China is going to become this massive threat to the United States and to other Western countries in general. But even so, it's it just I don't know. It just constantly boggles my mind that this is how far people are willing to go for this ideology that really is, when boiled down to its most basic level, is literally insane. Is literally just completely batshit crazy. So, and sorry, we'll go back to this now.
Let me, if I could, Madam Attorney General, come back to the Wisconsin case and Judge Hannah Dugan, because in allegedly letting the perpetrator and the attorney out through a non-public exit and allowed them to get out in front of the building, we had a situation where we've seen that I know Tom Homan was complaining about in Colorado, where there would be no transfer of a defendant from a jail to ICE custody on a detainer request in a way that was orderly and protected public safety. They would dump them off in a parking lot, and then ICE would have to chase them around with the DEA or whatever, or FBI, and pick them up. This ended up in a foot chase in public sight. It says here, a foot chase ensued. The agents, and this was a DEA agent and an FBI agent, pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse, ultimately apprehended him near the intersection of West State Street and 10th Street. So the judge apparently has created a situation here where you have a public foot chase. And we all know that, well, sometimes they can come off without incident. They can also turn into very dangerous situations.
John, that's exactly right. She put the lives of our law enforcement officers at risk. She put the lives of citizens at risk. A street chase, which is absurd that had to happen. But yes, she put a lot of people in danger. That judge did it. So did the other judge. Judge Cano is charged with. They were allegedly giving him assault rifles, AK-47s, AR-15s, with a suppressor, a known TDA member, letting him go to a shooting range to refine and perfect his shooting skills.
Madam
What's
Attorney
happened to our judiciary is beyond me.
Yeah, so when the American public hears this and they think these were once upstanding people in their communities and their professions, and they put it all on the line for this, I mean, have you dug into their motive? Like, what inspired them to carry out these acts and harbor criminals?
They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
If I could just finish off with this idea, very significant development that you're arresting judges now. Now, it could be that the judges have engaged in terribly bad behavior and deserve to be arrested. But you know what critics will say? They'll say, "Oh, this is a government that is expanding the powers of the Article 1 of the Constitution. Now they're arresting judges." How do you respond to that?
No one is above the law, John. No one is above the law in this country. And if you are destroying evidence, if you are obstructing justice, when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime in the United States of America. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be prosecuted.
So, that's a fun bunch, isn't it? What a humanitarian effort. Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, we're entering crazy town on a whole new level at this point, because there's really no oh, did I wait, hold on. My camera freeze? Hold on a second. Let's see what's going on here. Give me just a second. Let me see if I can work this out. I swear this thing is driving me crazy. There we go. Okay, we're back. That's what I mean. This thing's driving me nuts. So sorry about that, but I fixed it. Anyway, but yeah, no, we're getting into territory now where we're really like there's, if it's not obvious enough, and you know, Trump's numbers are fluctuating, but I can tell you one thing: people are looking at like, oh no, well, what's going to happen? I can tell you that's not going to be too much of a factor, because Democrat numbers are just continuing to drop. They're just dropping like a lead balloon, and they're not rebounding off of anything they do. Nothing they say is working, because no one buys their bullshit. Because it's just like, you can't get the usual suspects. You can't just get Rachel Maddow out there and have her with her ridiculous looking stupid fake smiles and her preposterous little sarcastic voice act like this is so beyond the pale, and the Trump administration is like Hitler, and they're evil, and they're this, and they're that, and they're da-da-da. That's not going to work this time. There's just too much. There's too much going on, and it's just too much for the American people to take. So unfortunately, no, it's not going to be. They, as I've been noticing, you know, they're trying to go back to their bag of tricks, and they're trying to pull the same old tricks that they know out, but they're just not working, and they just aren't getting the message. This whole Bernie and AOC tour might be, you know, enough to mobilize, I'm sure they would call it, mobilize their base, but I mean, the base for that kind of political party that advocates for the crazy shit like this, like, no, that's too much to swallow. In fact, there's one more interview we're gonna get to with Tom Homan in a second. It's about a different subject, but there's an incident that he's discussing when he talks about border crossings, and he mentions, you know, of course, he mentions the numbers being all-time low, but he does mention that there are some people that were permitted entry, and he, out of the group of people, out of the different groups of people that were mentioned, there were 4 that were granted entry, and I found this really striking when he said this, because it kind of goes against everything they try to use to paint Tom Homan with such a bad brush. They mention that, or he mentions that there was 4 people that they were allowed in because they had an extreme medical emergency and they needed treatment as soon as possible, and so they were allowed in under special circumstances to receive that kind of care. I mean, that's exactly the kind of humanitarian aid I would imagine people would hope they would get from the administration, because we're not going to let them stay, but we're not going to let them just die on our border, and that's the way that the border should be. Because when you have it flooded with a bunch of people and you can't see what's going on, and there's more people in the crowd than there are blades of grass on the banks of the Rio Grande, like, it's a little difficult to tell when somebody is actually in pain, or even, God forbid, someone is getting assaulted or attacked or raped or who knows what. And so you contrast that with the scene of somebody approaching Border Patrol stating, I'm having a serious medical problem. I don't know if I can't breathe, or whatever it might be. And they're like, okay, all right, we'll get you into a hospital. Okay, we'll get you, and then once they're patched up, I'm sure they're sent home. But the point is that the impression that you would get from hosts of leftist television that once again that they're just randomly yanking people off the street, and that they're just throwing them and deporting them to whatever old country they just decide to deport them to, and that they're going to pretty soon they're going to start just doing the same thing to American citizens. It's like, yeah, I'm sure that's what is on the top of their mind. It's just absolutely, like, I can't help but see it as the same thing I described last time. This is just like grasping at straws in the most desperate way possible to try and fight a narrative that is indefensible. And so, yeah, and then you see it when people push it too far, like these judges who were busted doing this crap. And it's like, I think more than anything else, it'd probably be a wake-up call to some of the other people that were a little too a little too much on the fence still, and weren't as maybe up to speed or up to date on a number of people that were just, well, the point is that, like, there's nothing that they have to be ashamed of, and the tactics from the left aren't working this time. That does have me a little bit concerned that, how far are they going to go? But at the same time, once again, you have to remember that even though they're dangerous, they're dangerous toddlers, meaning they're just they're just, once again, they're just LARPers. They're LARPing like the evil overlord has taken over control of the kingdom, and we have to deseat him from the throne and take power back to the people. And, like, they're running around acting like this is some sort of role-playing game session, and they act like it too, because it's like they get a piece of information, they hyper focus on it, and they turn it into some sort of weird story that doesn't really mesh well with doesn't really mesh well with general American experiences in the country, and it's not going to get any better when you just keep admitting the same group of people and the same type of people over and over again that don't do any kind of extra work for any humanitarian group that's actually a humanitarian group, or just like literally something that you can't argue, like, man, that's really generous of you to give your time to something like that. It's never anything like that. There's always like some sort of backhanded benefit to Democrats or Democrat senators or Democrat political strategists and all this other ridiculous garbage that is going to be, this is going to be the winning message in 2028. It's like, and I look back on it now, and it's kind of funny because I kind of called it kind of earlier on, but I never really talked much about it until later. And even then, I didn't really go into too much detail about it, but there's like a oh man, oh no, I think I lost my train of thought. No, damn it. Jeez. What was it that was? Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. People will believe it up until the point where they have that moment where they recognize, oh, this is it. I discussed that a little bit with COVID when I got COVID, and I was actually officially, diagnosed. I knew for a fact I had COVID. I diagnosed with COVID, and I remember at the height of my symptoms being like, "This is what's got everybody all freaked out and wearing masks and wearing 2 masks and staying indoors for all this time like this." Like, really? And granted, I didn't get the initial variant. I got, I think, it's probably the second variant, but still, that one was earlier on in the lifespan, and even that was like, so. And I'm not saying, my stance on that whole thing. I hate to even go into COVID at all, but just to even hint at the sort of position that I was taking and my mentality was coming from, it was like, I recognize, sure, there's going to be people that are going to be susceptible to this type of illness, but that's going to be a very specific subset and not a large one of the population. And to impose restrictions on the entirety of the country, regardless of how honestly difficult the situation is to like overcome, and it's made out to be like this huge doomsday scenario, and then it comes and people still want to tell you it's like, oh, the world is ending, and you're looking around like, well, I mean, it's a rainy day, but it's like, it's not, there's something wrong, but it's not like anything close to what you're saying. And it just seems really strange to me that that anybody can really stand up and defend that type of shit still, when we know the track record, we know the people, we know the history, we know what snakes and liars they are. And this isn't to give some of the more establishment sort of conservatives a pass either, because a lot of them have been in for a very long time, and it's just, I don't know, I just can't ever look at any kind of statement without skepticism that is coming from that. Now, John Fetterman, on the other hand, that's the kind of guy that's like, you listen to him speak, and even though he has issues speaking due to his mental condition, he's got a much better and clearer way of thinking than the majority of his party. So it's just ironic as hell that like so many things about that party are just, at this point, like, if you are still voting like, you don't even have to vote at all. Just like, if you're still voting in a way, it's like for all of the sort of more cliche, recognizable, or obvious sort of signs that you're dealing with something that is a bad news sort of situation, then there's not really much concern or But yeah, there just really isn't that much concern about, as much as they want to talk about it, there isn't that much concern about middle America, about the working class, about, and they're talking about tariffs and talking about, of all things, the stock market. It's like, call me crazy, but I don't think people in, like, Wisconsin or somewhere like, what was a good example? Well, anyway, that's just that's my take on that, and I'll move on from there. It's got me bewildered. It's really got me bewildered, and this was probably this situation with the judges was one where I was like, oh man, because I've talked to a couple people, and some of them were people that were more or less kind of on the fence people, and this was one of those things that was kind of like the last straw for them because and I haven't given up on so many occasions. It's crazy, but stay persistent, and you might actually change some minds. It's actually pretty crazy how it happens. But anyway, in more fun news about more ridiculous things they're doing, there is one more segment. It's kind of broken up into a couple different pieces, but of course the spin is already happening, and the main reason I wanted to tackle this story is because you're going to be hearing a lot about it over the next few days. They're going to keep talking about it, and they're going to twist it and turn it into a completely different story than what it actually is. And so I wanted to cut it off at the pass on my channel and do as much as I could to be like, nope, this is not what happened. This is not the case. This is what the reality is. And honestly, I just this isn't nearly as like despicable in most ways, but in some ways it is, because when you talk about the children of migrants or migrants, I just used the term on the last episode. I talked about how we need to stop using the term migrant because it doesn't mean what people try to make it mean. But then again, left is good at doing that. But the point is that the story about some deportations that happened with younger aged, mostly women, I guess, that what did they man, what was it? Man, well, there were some stories where there were some children that were born here, and once again, the stupid birthright citizenship garbage that, for some reason, even with a more, I would say, more centrist Supreme Court, if not slightly on the right, but for all the bitching and moaning from the other side, it's nowhere near an actual cutting plate. But it doesn't really matter to me about the way that it's rationalized. What matters to me is like, okay, well, what happens when this gets put into practice? And this is the problem, by the way, with a lot of aspects of illegal immigration in the first place, because how's the best way to describe it? Damn. Man, that sucks. I can't put it over. I'm sorry. Anyway, so there's been a couple of scenarios out in places where ICE has been raiding, where not raiding, ICE has been finding people to deport, and once again, as the Supreme Court decided that birthright citizenship means what it was never intended to mean, now they're deporting people that have children that are technically, apparently, American citizens. And as these people are getting deported, they, of course, are not going to leave their children behind. And, even if they have family that they trust here or whatever, they're not going to just leave the child behind. So what the left is doing now on their news coverage of this is they're not saying that situation. They're saying that the administration is deporting children now. That's the way they're phrasing it. And I was like, oh, God, here we go. Let's rile them up. Once again, I keep talking about the playbook. This is the kids in cages playbook move all over again. And it's even more insidious though, because well, I'll play a quick clip of this is Marco Rubio and Tom Homan on I believe it's Meet the Press. I think that was what it was, but either way, they basically eviscerate these ridiculous talking points. I think that they well, Senator Rubio's is, or Secretary Rubio's is a lot less confrontatious, I guess, or a lot less have the undertone of having the undertone of like going after something specifically. But anyway, let me pull this clip up and then we'll kind of go over this, because I want people to know this so that if they hear this information and they hear about the administration deporting children, that they actually know what happened and they don't buy into this garbage and think that, oh, now, because once again, going back to their narrative that they keep pushing about how, even if you're an American citizen, you're going to get grabbed up and shoved into a van and driven off. I was like we're in a fucking mafia movie or something. It's ridiculous. And yet here we go with this new claim that now they're deporting children. And it's like, no, that's not exactly what's happening, because you guys demanded birthright citizenship. So, okay, you can have it. If you're born here, you can have citizenship. But if we deport you, you don't just get to use them as, once again, the term anchor baby. That shit is over. We're not tolerating that anymore. So you can go and leave your child, which if you still even talk to the father, which in many cases they don't. But anyway, so yeah, let me get this clip started. This is on MSNBC, and once again we have a hack journalist trying to prove a point that actually makes no sense. So here, let's pull this one up, and because actually this comes from two different clips, but the clip with Secretary Rubio is extremely short, and Tom Homan's is extremely long. Oops. Oh, and there is kind of a curveball in this that they try to use as a gotcha to try and paint it like it's worse than it is. But once again, I'll refer back to the scenario I referred to earlier with the migrants that were, I said it again, illegal immigrants that were hospitalized when they needed care. Anyway, you gotta imagine that if there was anything that could be done or needed to be done, it would have been done, or it would be done, or it'd still be done. So anyway, here's this clip of I see what's going on here. One of my buttons is sinking into the case. I hope I don't lose it, but there we go. I think it's fine. Okay. All right. So here we go.
That's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. That's just not true.
Well, let's talk about what's happening on the interior. On Friday, there were 3 American citizen children born here who were deported along with their mothers from Louisiana down to Honduras. And according to advocates, one of them is a 4-year-old child with stage 4 cancer, a rare form of metastatic cancer.
And there's the zinger. There's the zinger they have to throw in there. Let's throw in that point to make it sound as extra cruel as possible, because kids in cages, kids in cages. So anyway, let's listen
who was
to this.
sent back to Honduras without getting to talk to a doctor and without medication. I understand this child's mother entered this country illegally, but isn't there some basis for compassionate consideration here that should have allowed for more consultation or treatment?
Well, it certainly is discretion. I'm not aware of the specific case, but no U.S. citizen child was deported. Deported means you got to be deported by the immigration judge. We don't deport U.S. citizens.
The mother was
These
deported
children
along with the children.
Yeah, that's
children
the point.
aren't deported. The mother chose to take the children with her. When you enter the country illegally and you know you're here illegally and you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. That's not on this administration. If you choose to put your family in that position, that's on them. But having a U.S.
I love that. That's such a great way to put it, because there's never any emphasis put on, and this is the same thing with the people who have late-term abortions. It's like nobody ever talks about the fact that, well, you had unprotected sex. That's part one. You knew you couldn't have a child and support it. That's part two. You waited 7 or 8 months. That's part three. And then you decided, well, no, I just can't go through this. And then we're supposed to what? Feel sorry for the person that made all the wrong decisions at every fucking turn, and now we're supposed to see it as like this travesty that we're committing? Sorry, this woman didn't need to illegally immigrate. This woman didn't need to open her leg for some guy. This woman didn't need to have a child on American soil and didn't need to count on that child to be her anchor in case the the ICE agents came to send her home. And it's a tragedy that the kid was born with a rare disease that is an unfortunate form of cancer. That's a terrible situation. Maybe the mother should have thought about the possible complications of having a child before she thought that she found her golden ticket into the United States. Maybe she should have thought of having a child as something a little bit bigger than her ticket into this fucking country. Maybe that's the problem. But no, we have to focus on the Trump administration, their evil deportations of children, which, once again, as Tom Homan said, and this is, once again, the doing of the Supreme Court, because they just had to uphold birthright citizenship as if that was what they meant when they drafted it. Like, yeah, we just freed all the slaves, and there's going to be questions raised about whether or not they're actually American citizens or whether they should be sent back to their home countries of Africa or wherever we got them from. But no, we're going to give them citizenship, and no one's going to raise any legal doubts about that, and that's the way it's going to be. So we're going to pass an amendment that when you're born here, and there's language that makes it much more clear, like when you're subject to the laws of the United States, which if you're an illegal, you're not really subject to the laws of the United States except for the one that says you need to get the hell out of here. But they just had to uphold this idea that no, if you just stroll across when you're dilated and then you have your child and now you have an American child. That's literally what that means. And yet nothing is, no emphasis placed on that. No emphasis placed on responsibility of the mother or are the fathers in their lives, or which she tries to go into in this segment. But I'm sorry, if the father was seriously in the child's life, he would be with the mother every step of the way during this process and make sure he was available to do anything and everything he needed to do to help the woman he impregnated with the child that is partly his. So, we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, here we go.
A citizen child, after you enter this country legally, it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It doesn't make
he just
make
said
you
that.
immune from the law.
I swear I didn't
That's
remember
the message
that.
we send to the entire world. Women are going to keep putting themselves at risk to come to this country. We send a message. You can enter the country legally, which is a crime. That's okay. You can have due process, great taxpayer expense, get ordered moved. That's okay. Don't leave. But have a U.S. citizen child and you're immune from removal, that's not the way it works.
So you don't think there should be compassionate consideration for a 4-year-old child undergoing treatment for cancer?
This bitch is so disingenuous.
I didn't say that. I said
that was the question.
ICE officers do have discretion.
Yeah.
ICE officers do have discretion. I'm not familiar with the specific case. I don't know what facts surround this case. I've just made aware of this when you mentioned this morning. I was not aware of that case.
On Friday, a federal judge who was appointed by President Trump said a 2-year-old American citizen child had been sent to Honduras with the mother who was deported. But the judge said, quote, there was no meaningful process. So again, this is another similar situation and dynamic. Shouldn't there be special care when these deportation cases involve small American-born children?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the judge. There was due process.
Yeah.
That female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by the immigration judge after those hearings. So she had due process. Again, this is parenting 101. You can decide to take that child with you, or you can decide to leave the child here with a relative or another spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws of the country. American families get separated every day by law enforcement. Thousands of times a day when a parent gets put in jail, the child can't go with them. These, if you're an illegal alien, come to this country, and you decide to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. You put yourself in that position.
Well, when it came to this particular case, you just pointed out that they could have made arrangements. The father tried, actually, to make arrangements, as we understand it through our reporting. But he and the mother, who were separated since she was in detention after showing up for her appointment,
Oh, that was the only reason.
allowed
Yeah,
a
I'm
very brief
sure.
phone
I'm
call.
sure.
The father tried to petition to get the child handed over to an American citizen relative. So the mother had to make this decision and took the child with her.
I don't buy it.
It
Sorry.
just seems like there could be some more time frame here around due process allowed.
Oh,
That's what the
fuck
judge
off.
is saying.
I don't care what the
should
judge
have
said.
been more of a
Was he
process
hiding
here.
some illegals too?
There was due process. The 2-year-old baby was left with the mother because the mother signed a document requesting her 2-year-old baby go with her.
Boom.
That's the parent's decision. I don't think the judge knows specifics of this case. 2-year-old went with the mom. The mom signed a paper saying, "I want my 2-year-old to go with me." That's a parent's decision. It's not a government decision. It's a parent's decision.
Very nice
The
to
father wrote a note.
note,
we have to leave
note,
it there.
yeah.
Director, thank you for your time today. We'll be right back.
Anyway, that's that. Once again, no responsibility on the illegal immigrant. No responsibility on what they decide to do while they're here. And one last thing about this, because this kind of thing just drives me up the wall when I hear this kind of thing. As we talked about in some of the earlier cases, these are people who have been deported before. These are people who, in many cases, have had a hearing and had an appeal and had it denied and have been issued a final notice of removal, meaning they've had about as much due process as any American citizen would ever get in any case. And they were still ordered to leave. Now, the problem is, under the Biden administration, when they got that final notice, they're like, yeah, okay, well, they're not supposed to stay. Well, we'll get around to that eventually. And they never, of course, did anything. So there are tons and tons. There's at least 500,000, if not more, people with final notices of removal that are still here, that have had the due process. But they don't know that, or they know and they don't care. I don't really know which one, and I particularly couldn't care less. The problem is that they're not going to report that. And that's why I say I want to make sure that I get out as much information as I can get out about this kind of situation. So if you hear about this kind of thing, you know that, no, there wasn't a lack of due process. No, this wasn't a rush to judgment. No, this wasn't the deportation of a child. This is a deportation of a woman who was not supposed to be in the country, who decided to bring the child that she had on U.S. soil, who she probably decided to have because she thought it would be her pass into the country. And when she found out it wasn't, she raised a stink, and then the media decided to help her raise a stink by spreading all this bullshit about what's happening. No, that's not what's happening. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, they use the fringe case. I'm sure every single child has cancer or is suffering. I mean, it's a tragic case, yeah. But they picked that one, of course. They picked that one to highlight because it's so cruel for you not to, when they don't talk about the facts, they never talk about the process. They never talk about how difficult it is for ICE to actually go through with the investigations, the FBI, the local law enforcement, all the steps they have to take to make sure they have the right suspect, because God knows, the same thing when BLM would, as soon as it was a white officer that just happened to shoot a black suspect, even if he was armed, oh, no, it's racist, it's systemic racism. And it's the same thing here where it's like, oh, if we deport anybody who is in the country, oh, they didn't have enough due process, oh, they didn't have this or that. How about we just start acting like people are fucking adults again and that they have control over what they do and they made shitty decisions, so this is the just desserts for those shitty decisions. I'm sorry. Once again, I would feel much more empathy for people that were in these kinds of situations if we weren't looking at a situation where we have children and mothers and relatives of people that are being murdered, raped, tortured, and imprisoned and human trafficked by these monsters, and you get some people that they're deciding to deport, and you're going to throw a temper tantrum and whine and complain. You didn't raise one alarm bell. You didn't say one word didn't get one tiny little ounce of airtime to the people in this country who have been subject to ridiculous treatment, pushed below the level of illegal immigrants, especially those in the black community, in poor neighborhoods across the country where there's limited resources and people barely have enough to get by, and then they send a boatload of illegal immigrants into the community to strain the already strained fucking social services. It's insane. And the American citizens deserve far better than that. So, sorry I'm not going to join your pity party, but I feel a little bit more pity for my fellow citizen than some illegal who shouldn't be here in the first place, which, by the way, the offer to self-deport that's been put on the table for illegals at this point, I mean, it's pretty damn generous. It's really generous, as a matter of fact, because even though you broke the law, we're offering you one hell of a way to get out of it and not shutting the door on you for potentially entering the correct way someday. So there's nothing inhumane about any of this. And yet they're finding every possible route they can use to make it seem like it's this terrible, horrible, inhumane travesty of what they're doing. So once again, this is just to hopefully let you guys know, and because I missed the ball a little bit on the when it came to the first instances of the due process claims and that whole thing. I wasn't unfortunately I wasn't as constantly doing episodes as I have been in the past, so I didn't really get to have the ongoing discussion that was relevant at the time when that first started. But now that they're trying to find these new ways, because they're never going to stop finding, trying to at least find new ways to pin every inhumane charge they can against President Trump and his administration, and it's going to be with half-truths and very, very selective cases and selective outrage, and most of it is going to be and a bunch of covered up information that would lend some very relevant context to each of these scenarios if you actually heard it. So that's my public service announcement for today. Anyway, that's where I'll call it a day today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will hopefully be back tomorrow if the OBS actually decides to work. Just been having all kinds of weird troubles. Hopefully it ends tomorrow. But thanks again for watching. I'm glad I'm back on a Monday. Isn't that fun? But I will hopefully talk to you guys tomorrow. Either way, I'll see you on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great one. See you tomorrow. Peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is?
For credits.
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go.